Hello, everyone. I am Grace, the scheduling coordinator for NJ4S Union Hub, and today we'll be continuing our February webinar series with our prevention consultant, Jennifer Destra. She will be presenting Self-Love Without the Clichés. Some information about her. Jennifer Destra is a prevention consultant at NJ4S Union, but her path to the mental health field wasn't always the plan. With a background in finance and professional sales, she's made the switch after realizing how much mental health impacts every part of her life, especially in communities where it's often overlooked. Now, as a master's student in school and clinical mental health counseling, she's dedicated to breaking cultural stigmas, making resources more accessible, and creating safe spaces for people from marginalized backgrounds to heal and grow. Outside of work, Jennifer creates content on holistic healing, self-discovery, and embracing authenticity. She's all about exploring new places, trying new things, soaking in scenic views, spending quality time with loved ones, and, of course, enjoying good food. So I will now let Jennifer take over.
Thanks so much, Grace. So I'm really excited for this topic. Today we're talking about self-love without the cliches. Just basically redefining self-love as emotional protection. I know like the world has its own definition of what we think self-love is, but we're going to debunk that and actually talk about what it actually means. I have a question. What if self-love isn't about just feeling good, but it's actually about staying safe? Self-love is how we protect our heart, mind, and future. It's just basically how we not only regulate ourselves, but make sure that we prioritize and just embrace the reality of who we are. We all come from different backgrounds, all have different capacities, and we don't take the time to address our different limits. So it's just how we protect ourselves. So a reflection question I wanted to give you today was, when was the last time I kept going, even though I was emotionally tired? So think about the last time you pushed yourself to do something, even though you knew in your heart, in your mind, in your body that you were tired, like you needed a break, you needed a rest, or you needed to say something and you chose not to. I know for me, I'm a master's student right now, so sometimes I'll try to push myself to do all-nighters like I did in undergrad. And I know like now my schedule is much more. When I was on my undergrad, I didn't have like a full-time job while I was in school, but now I do. So all-nighters don't work for me the way I used to, but every time I try to push myself, I'll end up just like going to sleep early. So just being aware of those things as well. So today on the agenda, we're going to understand self-love as a mental health skill. It's not a taboo or a new culture trend, but it's like an actual skill that we should put into practice. We're going to recognize some emotional warning signs, how to listen to our body and our emotions while we're still aligning with what's true to ourselves. And then we're going to learn how to use boundaries, rest, and self-respect, and then know when to seek support. I know we see self in the self-love definition, but there are instances in self-love where you're going to need to seek help too, so that you can cater to the nature of who you are. So let's talk about a little bit of what we think self-love is. So today's culture will tell yourself that like self-love is like putting yourself first and not caring about everyone else. Tells you to love yourself, which is very much important. In the context of love yourself, like make sure you like, once again, don't care about anybody else or you don't regard anybody. It tells you to just be confident, but doesn't actually like, you don't actually allow yourself to be real with yourself. And it tells you to just do what makes you happy, but it doesn't align with do what is true to you, do what actually feels good, do in a way that like helps you show up for yourself. And all of these, like, it tells you to like, put yourself first and protect your energy, but it doesn't teach how to stop overgiving, right? We're talking about like putting yourself first. And, for someone who may struggle with like people pleasing and, wanting to feel accepted, they may think that like, putting themselves first is like putting themselves in people's position to stay accepted at the means of burnout. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on. It doesn't also teach how to say no. And it also doesn't teach how to rest and how to leave unhealthy situations, because self-love makes you think that it's like an end all be all and it's all about you, but it doesn't talk about what happens when you have to get around people. Us as humans, we're innate creatures that like desire relationship. And so when we talk about self-love today, it doesn't really put in the aspect that at some point you're going to have to surround yourself with people. At some point you're going to need to interact with people to do things. And so how do you show up for yourself without hating other people? Like, how do you honor who you are without, you know, disrespecting others too? So why does this matter? When we're talking about self-love without the cliches, it's not just another catchy title. Like the definition has been debunked. There's a lot of now a new culture of like catering to self-love, which is amazing, but it doesn't address the unprotected emotional stress people have. People are now like in a position of taking care of themselves, which is great, but they're also not addressing what is the root issue of the tension they may have with people or with things that they're not honoring for themselves. So unprotected emotional stress leads to anxiety, depression, burnout, in unhealthy relationships, because you're not being authentic with yourself. You're not being real with what's going on. And it's not selfish to have self-love. Like, you should ultimately know yourself, love yourself, so that you can show up for people as the best version of yourself. And it's not indulgence to take that time to be aware and take care of yourself. It's emotional and mental prevention. Self-love, so we're going to give it a whole new definition, right? So self-love is the practice of protecting your emotional, mental, and relational well-being. So this is how what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your body, as well as what's going on with other people. We take just the self out of self-love and we forget that there's an aspect of how we show up with other people. So this means, how do I protect my energy, right? So not giving everybody access to me, not letting things get to me or get a reaction to me, but also being real with myself. It also means to honor my limits. Like, this is a fine line between what I tolerate and what I don't tolerate. It also lets me know that I'm doing too much. It also means to listen to your emotions with truth. Your body sometimes can be deceiving, but your emotions are actually, they tell you signs. They're like warnings. They're like guides that tells you like what's going on in your body. But sometimes like those emotions could be fleeting. So always check your emotions, yes, but align it with the truth of what you know. Sometimes like I may feel super just angry, not angry, or just super like tired, and like I don't feel like doing my work or anything, and I'm just like, maybe I should take a nap. But maybe the reality of it is I didn't eat all day. So maybe the truth is I just need to eat something and I still have to do my work. So that's just balancing. And then choosing peace, it also means choosing peace and stability. So at the end of the day, self-love shouldn't put you in a place where you're isolated and you're protecting your energy, but you're not being real with yourself, or you're not at peace with who you are. But it should come from a place of like, okay, I'm taking care of myself so then I can come back, or I can take care of myself so I can honor what I actually need to be in a stable place in my life. And then it also means to care for yourself without staying stuck. So yes, we're taking care of ourselves, we're loving on ourselves, but we're not staying complacent. We're not allowing the things that hurt us, overwhelmed us, tired us to like make us be afraid to get back into those things. Is just knowing how to show up in an authentic way. So another reflection question I have for you is, what happens when we don't protect our emotions, or we protect ourselves but stop growing? So I actually have two examples of either of those situations. There was a time where like I'm a very optimistic person. Like, I like to be happy. I like to be around people, but sometimes I don't allow myself sit with myself and understand what's going on, or just like allow myself to process my emotions because I was around people all the time. So because of that, like I would notice that I got to a point where I would be around people and I would just like be just so drained, so tired. And that's what happens. Like it's like putting on a mask, but not realizing what's going on underneath. So when we don't protect our emotions, we don't allow ourselves to be real with what our body needs, what we actually want, or how to like really analyze and reflect within ourselves. On the flip side of things, when we try to protect ourselves, but we stop growing, we start moving out of fear. We start also like blocking ourselves from, getting to try new things, or, staying in a place where we're safe, but we're stuck. This could be in a situation like you trusted yourself in a relationship with someone and that person hurt you. Now you tell yourself you're never going to experience that kind of relationship. Great. But also, if you limit yourself from ever interacting with people ever again, like that may be a sign that there's still some healing, there's still some work that needs to be done as far as like um protecting ourselves, yes, and finding that safety, but we're not growing. So let's talk a little bit about your emotions. Your emotions are signals. I know they say like emotions could be deceitful and all this stuff, but your emotions are not weaknesses. Just because you feel tired, it doesn't mean that you're a weak person. It's your body telling you that you need fuel in some area of your life, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whatever the case may be. But it's information. Your emotions tell you when something hurts. They also tell you when something is too much. It tells you when something is unsafe, when something is draining. Your body will tell you when you are completely depleted. Your emotions will tell you when you're overload. Same with like how you start to feel. You could be tired because you ate too much. You could also be tired because you didn't eat enough. So you have to not only like look at it and just ignore it, but analyze that information and tell you what that means. And ignoring those, especially when you're ignoring something that hurts you too much, or you sweep it underneath the rug and you're like, oh, okay, it's fine. It often leads to burnout, where you mentally and emotionally check yourself out. And it also leads to numbness and anxiety because of having to deal with all those unresolved emotions. Boundaries. Um, And this slide was near and dear to my heart personally, because like that's something I'm actively working on. But boundaries are self-love. We think boundaries break a relationship, and self-love means that, oh, we just don't allow people in. But boundaries is actually how you are able to love yourself and love others. Boundaries mean I know what I can and cannot handle. And it doesn't mean that I don't try things, but I know my limits. I know what I can and what I can't do, and what I'm willing to try and what I'm not willing to try. I also know that when I set boundaries, it means I don't say yes when I mean no. We as humans, we have autonomy, we have free will, but we also have the opportunity to not allow past experiences to coerce us into saying yes when we mean no. So if you actually mean no, let your no mean no and your yes mean yes. It's gonna hurt people at the end of the day. That's just the reality of it. But at the same time, you don't find yourself resenting people because you made a decision you didn't honor within yourself. You also don't allow disrespect when you set your boundaries. Unless you know this is enough. Like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm also not gonna let this conversation affect me in that way. But I'm drawing the line there. You're not entertaining it. You're not doing too much. And then you also don't. Boundaries mean I don't over explain my limits. You don't owe anybody access to what you don't want to share, and you don't have to over explain what are your boundaries. You can let people know with love, hey, like this is something I can't do right now. But also you're honest with yourself and letting people know that, like, you know, I don't have to keep over explain why this is not something I want to do, because people who love and respect you, like, they would love and respect your boundaries too. So another reflection question that I want to leave with you right now is, where in my life do I need a boundary right now? Like, boundaries are, you might need a boundary for a lot of things. I know right now, personally, I need a boundary in regards to the time that I'm allocating um, to things. Sometimes I overlap in doing things because I prefer to do one thing over the other, but I might need a boundary to against myself to sacrifice sometimes doing the things that I want to do for the things that I need to do so that I can be there for everyone. So, what does this look like in real life? Um, we could talk about self-love and the cliches and everything, but let's put it into application. So self-love as emotional protection looks like pausing before saying yes. You don't have to jump and say yes every right away. You don't owe anybody a direct answer. You can say, can I think about it and then I'll come back to you? Or, let me look at what I got going on and I'll let you know. That's you. It's also looks like leaving conversations that feel unsafe. This conversation no longer serves me. Or, I just don't feel comfortable talking about this topic, or I don't necessarily agree with this. And you don't have to agree to feel unsafe, but sometimes if it feels like it's drawing the line between what you can handle, respectfully, I'm leaving the conversation. It also means resting without guilt. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this because a lot of people, especially, it's February, the January passed by and everybody had all these New Year's resolutions and all these things, working hard, going themselves into overdrive. But self-love is a balance. It's a balance between taking care of yourself, but also resting when you need to. Like taking the care of the things that you want to do, whether you want to get in the gym, whether you want to be at the top of your class, whether you want to get a better paying job, or whatever the case may be. Doing the things that you need to do, but not feeling bad about having to take rest when you need to. Like, it's okay to take rest. Your brain and your body actually needs that. And I'm going to talk about that in a little later time. It also means not chasing people who treat you poorly. We put ourselves stuck in a cycle because we're like, okay, self-love looks like staying with the people that I think loves me. But also, it doesn't mean running after negative energy, running after people that treat you poorly. And then it also looks like asking for help before you break. I hate this society in a way, like, not hate this society, but I hate how sometimes society paints an image that, like, people have to see you at your breaking point to know that you need help. And they always have this quote that says, check on your strong friends or your happy friends. But you should be able to ask for help way before that point. It shouldn't have to be that you're at your breaking point and now people can see you hurting, or now you can feel like you can ask for help. You can ask in the littlest of things. I know for one thing I did for self-love, I asked Grace if she could give me a little bit more time. And and that was like a little thing, but it made a big difference. And so a reflection question that I would give you is, what is one small way I could protect my peace this week and protect your boundaries as well? So just being able to ask questions, ask away, ask, not to say I'm like gonna say like a begging, but like, just ask in little ways that you that can help you get to a better position for yourself. Um, at the end of the day, you don't owe everyone access. Not everyone is going to have the same access to your life as they would like to, or vice versa. Sometimes you think you know everybody and you may not know them as much as the next person, and that's okay. Self-love is the understanding that you know yourself enough to know what you can handle. And that means sometimes you can't handle everybody. And you also don't have to answer to everybody. So you are allowed to change your mind once you have made a decision and understand that, okay, you know what? This is a little bit too much for me. Or I actually don't really want to do this anymore. You can change your mind. You are also allowed to need space. Boundaries and self-love also, you're okay. It's fine to need space as long as you communicate it and as long as you understand that this is coming from a place where I'm not punishing people, but I just actually need to recharge and recenter and reset myself. You're also allowed to say that, I'm not ready. I don't feel like I want to do this. I don't feel like I'm ready for this. If it's something where it's like, I'm not ready, but you know that this is something maybe you want to do, then you know that this is still an area that you're going to grow towards. But you're also allowed to say, that doesn't feel right. You are definitely allowed to say that does not feel right. I would say trust your gut feeling because it'll tell you what's going on. And if you find yourself in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, unsafe, you just want to stop at any point, or like you feel like this is too much for you, you can say that this doesn't feel right. And you can do all of this even with friends, family, even your boo. Like even your boo. So self-love is about choosing yourself without hating others. And I highlighted hating others because of today. Today makes self-love seems like the most selfish, hard-hearted type of things. But no, self-love is choosing yourself. It's choosing what is the best version of Jennifer looks like? What is the best version of whoever's on the other side of the screen watching this looks like without hating others, without having unresolved tension with people, without getting to a point of burnout or bitterness or resentment towards people, and addressing those things too. Because if you're choosing yourself, but you still hate others, there's still this tension there. And that means there's something that's still not solved, and it doesn't leave you in the peace that you said that you're looking for. So ultimately with self-love, you need to rest. You need to rest. Yes, work hard, play hard too. And rest is not laziness. We think rest is just sleeping. Sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I've been a victim of it too. I've definitely have overslept or used rest or sleeping, like sleeping way too much to avoid stress. But when your body needs rest, this is after being overloaded. And you need to allow your brain and nervous system to recover. And without rest, like your emotions are going to get heavier. Like you don't allow your body to recover from the stress that's going on. You don't give your brain a break. Without rest, your patience also gets shorter. You don't have energy. You don't have time because like you're already thinking of so many things that the last thing you could do is fit something else in. Without rest, it also makes stress turn into sickness. There's a very, very, very good book called The Body Keeps the Score. And the crazy thing is, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't even read it yet, but I've read so many clips from it, from excerpts from it, from articles that talks about how many studies that show that when we don't give ourselves rest and we don't stop ourselves from mental overload, it will manifest into sickness. It will turn into sickness because your body really does keep the score of what's going on. And so another discussion question or just a reflection question to ask yourself is, what would rest look like for you this week? I know rest would look like for me, honestly, taking things one thing at a time, and then honestly listening to my body, like when I'm hungry, when I'm tired, when I need to take a walk, and actually like get my body moving. Like it's actually the opposite thing. I feel like I've been so like down, especially it's cold, but rest looks like for me is going on a little walk, even if it's around the office, because I need to just get my mind off of things. So with self-love, it's this aspect of, yes, loving yourself, but it's also how you show up in your actions. So I also wanted to talk about self-confidence and how it's like different than self-respect. Because when we get to a point where we're like, oh, I'm showing myself self-love, like I'm operating in self-love, we think that it's like this thing that we say, like, oh, I'm doing some self-care, self-love, but it's easier to say, it's easier to know that's what you need and how you feel, but self-respect is how you show up. So, self confidence is how you feel. So, I know that I don't tolerate these things. I don't put up with these things. I know that when I need rest, I'll do it. That's good. That may be how you feel. But what you actually do is the definition of how you show yourself self respect and self love. So, self respect looks like actually standing up for yourself. It's not enough to just say that, oh, I feel disrespected by this person because they do X, Y, and Z. Self respect would look like saying something, actually taking action so that you can actually get to the place where you don't grow bitterness or resentment. It also looks like leaving spaces where you're undervalued or burnt out. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a bit. But just understanding that, like, at the end of the day, I could leave. Like, if this is too much, like, you have a choice. I think we sometimes think that we don't have choices because of sometimes it's easier and more comfortable to stay than to leave and have that uncertainty or just understanding that it may sever a relationship or whatever the case may be. But you have the choice to also respect yourself enough to leave. It also looks like not tolerating disrespect at some point, and even if you're a teen, even if you're a kid, you do not have to put up with certain things that don't align with who you are. And it doesn't mean that you're not respectful of others, but it also means that you draw the line when it becomes too much. And then it also looks like keeping your peace without shrinking. So once again, and I'm going to keep emphasizing this over and over again because I've seen it all the time. Like, and then I even had it within my own self sometimes. I'm practicing self-love, but it means that I put boundaries up like it's a wall instead of a gate. Understanding that, like, this happened to me, I'm going to set up this wall, put up this boundary so that this doesn't happen to me anymore. But I want to, at the end of the day, not come back, but necessarily be at a place where I didn't shrink, where I didn't, um, now move out of fear or now be afraid to say what I'm saying, how I feel, or put myself back in places that I once loved because I'm afraid of getting hurt again. And so the takeaway from the slide is like feeling good isn't enough, like, right? You could say things to make yourself feel good, but how you act towards yourself matters more. So, yes, self-confidence is how you feel. You may feel like, you like how you look or whatever the case may be, but self-respect is how you act towards yourself, how you treat yourself, the actions that you take. So, preventing burnout, this is so common. Burnout happens when you give more than you have. So when I remember going back to the first slide, self-love today doesn't teach you how to stop overgiving. And there's nothing wrong with giving. But when you give more than you have, you put yourself in a deficit. You put yourself in a place where now you're like scrambling to find the energy, scrambling to find the time or the money or the resources to be able to give or to be able to show up. And you're like putting your mental state at harm. Burnout also happens when you never rest. You never rest because you feel guilty for resting. You feel like you don't deserve rest. You always show up for everyone else, but you ignore your own needs. Like, no, like it's okay to be a person that is reliable, but it's not okay to play superhero when you're pouring from an empty cup. At some point, you have to pour back into your own cup so that you can come back and you're not giving people leftovers. So ask yourself, what do I need right now to stay well and keep growing? So even if you find yourself, whether you're in a place of burnout at your job, if you find yourself in a place of burnout, um, wherever the case may be, at school, at home. Like, what do I need right now to stay well and keep growing? Me, one of the best things that I've learned to do is make a weekly to-do list and look at it every day because I know what I need to do, but I know I also overwhelm myself with a bunch of tasks. So I just know that if I have a list and I take one thing at a time, some progress is better than no progress. Also, self-love also means knowing when to talk to someone. We think that self-love is just knowing what we need to take care of ourselves, but sometimes what we need is support. And support is not weakness. Support doesn't mean you needing help doesn't mean that you're a failure. It's actually wisdom. And it means that, it means knowing when to talk to someone. It means knowing that, okay, this is a lot for me to handle. Maybe I need to seek counseling to figure things out. Maybe I need to dive into like my spiritual resources. I pray or meditate or reach out or, ask for help in any capacity that you wish so. Because we can't carry it all in all the time by ourselves. And you don't have to suffer in silence. So a reflection question for you would be, who is one safe person you could talk to when you're overwhelmed? I know for me, one of the people that I love to talk to when I'm overwhelmed, I have a few people. I have a very good close knit of friends. I actually went out with one of my girlfriends this past weekend, and like we were able to just I was able to talk to her about things that I don't really get to talk to everybody about. So just having that one safe person, and if you don't have that person, find a support group. There are tons of support groups for things, issues, whatever the case may be that you would need help in. So self-love isn't about being selfish. We have this definition written all wrong, that it's about blocking yourself off and, not doing what you need to do and ignoring people or cutting people off. It's not about being selfish. It's about being safe. Because once you feel safe, you can trust to overcome things, get yourself what you need to rest and recharge and come back to being a better version of yourself for your future. Because when you protect your heart, you protect your future. So that is really all that I have for this topic. Once again, this is like one of my favorite topics. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, for this very engaging presentation on self-love. And thank you to everyone else for tuning in. Our last presentation for February is called The Mind-Heart Connection, How Stress Impacts Both Mental and Heart Health by Brian Valdez. So stay tuned for that. If you enjoy this presentation, you want to keep up with NJ4S Union Hub activities, just follow us on social media at NJ4S Union. Or if you want to contact us about programming, you can just email us at nj4sunion@preventionlinks.org. So thank you again for joining us and have a great rest of your day.